I'm Mary Price, and this will begin my presentation based off my PowerPoint and writing from the perspective of a natural scientist in Lagos, writing about climate control. And pretty much what makes it so obvious right now in Lagos is flooding and rainfall. So I'll get right into it. Like I said, for this assignment, I wrote from the perspective of a natural scientist. So I did try to look into, while I am not a chemistry major, I did try to look into a little of the things that someone as a natural scientist, as opposed to just a normal citizen living there, would notice. So some really important changes that have happened that affect the ecosystem and the wildlife, everything is salinity of the water is really changing because of all this heavy rainfall, because of runoff, because of all the repercussions, everything in conjunction. The salinity and just the water table is damaged. It's not like it was before. It's really hard for an ecosystem to thrive if there's not a thriving water table, if I learned from Envirothon at a young age. But anyways, a lot of people who are concerned about the environment feel that a main issue is that we won't act upon it until it's too late. We won't take action until it's too late. But in Lagos, it's because we can't see the effects of the climate change right in front of us very obviously. But in Lagos, they can't hide from the effects of climate change anymore because there's extremely heavy, extremely unpredictable rainfall that causes flooding. There's flooding in the coastal areas, which that's completely new. Rain has been happening, but flooding in the coastal areas, which is the extremely highly populated areas, as well as areas of poverty in Lagos. So that's just extremely unfortunate. But if I could go back to my last presentation on wealth and poverty and included a lot about population. Lagos is in a population crisis right now. The anticipated growth rate, it's said, in Lagos is said to be 10 times that of New York and Los Angeles as of right now. And there are already about 13 million inhabitants. Like I said in my last presentation, that's debated in Lagos state government. People say they lied about their population, but about 13 million people there, and a growth rate estimated to be 10 times that of a city like Los Angeles or New York. So this does not help with the climate crisis and its prevention. It is so hard to obviously deal with the issues that are already there and then try to handle these issues that are coming. So there are a few steps that people are taking to try to accommodate these two crises that are going on at the same time in Lagos that are so conflicting. So Lagos State is, as they should, in my opinion, taking action. They have been working for 10 years because this is not completely new. It didn't just start this year, and the population has been extremely rapidly increasing. They've been working on 10 years for what they call, what an article called Sprawling Garden City Metropolis. So a town that could house, somewhat of a town, city that could house 30 million homeless residents because they have an extremely high homeless population in Lagos. And then the reason I say sprawling garden city metropolis is because the idea is that they would plant a vast amount of native plants, and it would confront the issue of the heavy rainfall. Now it doesn't prevent some other issues, but as you'll see with all the other plans for the future, or like hopes to improve the climate change crisis and population crisis, there's always pros and cons. Everything isn't black and white. So then another idea that is not, Lagos State isn't in charge of it, but it's just the idea of densification, of building up, of moving the city. By the way, that plan for Lagos State government to build the metropolis, they hope to enact it and have the city and homeless people living in it by 2030, but who knows. But anyways, densification is the term, it's proposed by many, but it describes when a constant population is moved to a smaller area. So they definitely would want to move people away from the coast, away from the most dangerous areas. So build more levels to more buildings to accommodate more people in a smaller area, And then, like I said, how there's pros and cons to everything. This does not combat the climate change whatsoever. Like, it's avoiding it, but at the same time, it's also bad because the construction of a bunch of cities would have negative repercussions on the climate. So while it is helping the people, the government, and everybody kind of has to prioritize their values. So that's something interesting to think about. And then one more plan for the future was finally, apparently Northern Lagos there's another state kind of cutting into it, and it's geographically difficult to urbanize from what I understand. It's hard looking at some primary sources, but another idea is urbanizing Northern Lagos. So that's similar to the densification. They would be able to move people from the coastal areas up to Northern Lagos, but like I said, it's geographically difficult. From what I understand, there's another state that's like kind of in the way. It's difficult terrain to urbanize. It does give space for people to settle and relocate, but just as the densification, as opposed to it helping with the climate issues. While it does avoid the repercussions of the climate issues, it is kind of counterintuitive in the sense that it'll be worse. Like it'll have emissions. It will have negative repercussions on the climate change in an attempt to avoid the negative repercussions of climate change, as the population is extremely rapidly increasing. So as you can see, from the perspective of a natural scientist, it's a very complicated issue going on right now in Lagos in terms of climate change. A lot more prevalent than we see it in America right now, but we can definitely use it to anticipate what will happen in the future and make plans for the future. And unfortunately, but also fortunately, they're kind of setting a precedent for how to deal with this kind of thing. So I hope you've received my PowerPoint that this presentation was based off of, and I believe I submitted my natural scientist brief paper. So yeah, I believe that's it for my presentation, and I'll be checking up on my emails to stay up to date with class.